I talked to Nash several times on air on our kayfabe shows about his leaving, and I've heard him talk even before that about when he was going to leave WWE, and this was not part of a long range plan. So I do tend to believe that. Listen, you're always going to consider, right? You're always going to think and go, "Oh, is the grass greener on the other side?" But there's usually some kind of impetus that pushes us to pull the trigger when we're leaving a job for another job, especially if a friend of yours is headed over there and, says, things are pretty sweet. It might just take one or two things to go wrong that night to go, you know what? Fuck this.
Well, also, Nash does a good job of explaining the context to him at that time, monetarily. Because it's easy in 2000, 2001, and definitely in 2022 to look at the size of the WWE since then and forget that he was like, I'm going from an unstable, probably non-livable wage to a livable wage.
And I do believe when Kevin said, Kevin's a loyal guy. I do believe that if Vince would have went into his pocket and made that money happen, I believe he would have stayed.
And he was asking for guaranteed money. And I think over the next 10 years, guaranteed money became a dirty word in pro wrestling because there was so much of it at the top. But correct me if I'm wrong, he was asking for $150, maybe $200,000 a year guaranteed.
But
to be the top guy on your TV show.
Isn't that funny? Even what you just said, how wrestling fans will turn on the guys that began to treat their career like an actual career, and not that they just wandered under the circus tent and said, "Oh, I could throw people around for a while. You can pay me in peanuts or coins." When any of these guys that began to treat it like an NFL player, no one's got problems with these guys. NBA players, no one's got a problem with them. When it became big business, 80s NBA, and on, no one's got a problem. When a wrestler treats it like a career, like a business, like a sport, has an agent, they get shit.
Yeah.
Never understood that.
That happens in some professional sports towns, like Philadelphia, where I'm from, but only if that player starts doing poorly. Everybody loved Terrell Owens until he started playing poorly. Then we're like, hold up, you're a distraction.
All right, but that's tied to his performance, though. So,
yes.
No one's doubting that Kevin was drawing, or any of the guys in that echelon.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin, Brett, Scott, Sean, any of those guys. No one's going to deny that they filled the house. So why can't they say? Why can't they say I deserve a piece of this? Look at the numbers you're bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
Where's my cut? I don't know. No one complained that Michael Jordan got however many tens of millions of dollars he did because he filled the Rosemont Horizon or whatever it became after that, for Christ's sake, the Chicago Arena. No one's got a problem with that. When it's wrestling, people tend to look down on the talent, whether you're talking about Hogan, anybody else. Never got that.
It is interesting. Wrestling seems to just be different than a lot of other things. I was explaining to friends of mine who are just fans of other TV shows, like reality competition shows. And I was like, what was the rating of that finale? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, I keep forgetting that that's only a part of pro wrestling fandom. If you're a fan of Survivor, you don't care if 2 million people or 20 million people watch Survivor. You like Survivor.
Good point. Yeah.
It's something about wrestling fans that and some would say Meltzer has trained us to do that, but I don't know if that's completely the case. But for some reason, that's part of the conversation of a wrestling fan. You're like, I like that Seth Rollins promo. That Will Ospreay match was really good, and I heard the ratings were great.
All right. What was the quarter hour?
Yeah, what was the quarter hour where it's like, none of us are stockholders. Why are we following that number?
No, I know. We were kind of trained into that. I'm going to say the Monday Night War era, 98, 97, 98, when they started announcing. It became part of the discussion, okay? So the newsletters would begin to print this now, and there were no podcasts, but like there was that live show on IATA. Remember IATA.com? I know Meltzer and Alvarez would go on there and talk. I guess it was the earliest form of the podcast, the online radio show. But we were now privy to what these guys were drawing the night before, and so yeah, it became part of the discussion. As much a part of the discussion as what the opening match was, who had the title, what was the quarter hour. We were becoming too smart. The smarts were becoming too smart. And probably because, and today it's not even, smart's not even a term, right? Everyone is smart today.
Right.
We are just to assume that there is no division between the marks and the smarts. Everybody knows the quarter hour on the Will Ospreay deal.
Like you find an 11-year-old in the lobby at a wrestling show. They could probably tell you what the rating was last week. It's become so ingrained in the behavior, and it's just so different from literally anything else.
It makes it so much less fun, though, too, because it's just more that continues to draw the curtain back. And listen, I'm as guilty as anybody for having contributed to that with the shows I did with Kayfabe, but
you made it a business.
You made it a career. I don't know if that's any if that makes it any better.
I don't know. I've spent a lot of my time professionally finding things that live in my rent head free, and then finding a way to charge them rent.
Right. That's true.
And so pro wrestling to me was a thing that lived so much in my head rent free, where I was like, I really need to find a way to work with these guys, if for no other reason, so that I can make some money.
Right.
Make some money on the thing that I think about all the time.
Right. Well, there's plenty of money to be made. Wrestling was an untapped, for a long time. If it was like, if you weren't part of the big machine, you couldn't monetize it.